You are a part of him. You have a mutual duty to each other. As the children of Yuhewahe, you have his qualities, genes, and chromosomes. Almighty Yuhewahe and his son, Yutewahe Bethune Sophie Yutewahe, are bound to you by ties of affection. They are bound to you by love. They are bound to you by ties of regard. Almighty Yutewahe and his son, Yutewahe Bethune Sophie Yutewahe, take great pleasure in you. Yutewahe is pleased with you when you obey his laws. You bring Yuhewahe enjoyment and satisfaction when you show love one to another. You bring Yutewahe gratification when you love him with all of your mind, and all of your soul, and all of your might. You are the source of his delight when you worship no other God but him. You give Almighty Yutewahe great pleasure, satisfaction, and enjoyment when you teach your children to love Yutewahe and to obey his laws, statutes, judgments, and commandments, and teach them how to teach their children the love of Yutewahe forever. This kind of love for Yutewahe is already bound to you as his object of delight. Almighty Yutewahe will bless you with eternal life in paradise and heaven if you will not take the name Yutewahe, your God, in vain. You actually excite Yutewahe and thrill him when you put your total trust in him for all things. And because Yutewahe loved your fathers, therefore Yutewahe chose you, their seed, after them, and brought you out in his sight with his mighty power out of Egypt. Listen, O Israel, so-called black man, the royal priesthood, the chosen of Yutewahe. Remember this day in which you came out from Egypt. For this is your true history. Almighty Yutewahe brought you out of the house of bondage. For by strength of hand, Yutewahe brought you out during Passover, at which time no leavened bread shall be eaten. Unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and there shall no leavened bread be seen with you. Neither shall there be leaven seen with you in all your quarters. And it shall be for a sign unto you upon your hand, and for a memorial between your eyes, that the law of Yutewahe may be in your mouth. For with a strong hand has Yutewahe brought you out of Egypt, and with a strong hand shall Yutewahe bring you out of America and all the countries wherein you are scattered. Therefore, Yutewahe Passover is a night to be much observed unto Yutewahe for bringing you out from the land of Egypt. This is that night of Yutewahe to be observed of all the children of Israel in your generation forever. You shall eat no leavened bread with Passover. 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread, therewith even the bread of affliction. For you came forth out of the land of Egypt in haste, that you may remember the day when you came forth out of the land of Egypt, all the days of your life. We were all witnesses to what Yutewahe did to Pharaoh. For with a strong hand did he let us go. With a strong hand did he drive us out of his land. Yudhe-Wavhe is sovereignty, yesterday, today, and forever. And you shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs you shall eat it. By now, you should realize that flesh, night, fire, unleavened bread, and bitter are used metaphorically. Thus, the true meaning is hidden and is revealed by the Son of Man, Yudhe-Wavhe Bet-Nun Sofit, Yudhe-Wavhe. Flesh comes from the Hebrew word basar. It's spelled in Hebrew Beit Sin Resh, basar, and means you were stripped of the covering of morality which protected your soul and spirit from destruction. It means you suffered from the passions of the wicked. It means you were carnally minded, fleshly minded, and immoral. That's what flesh represents. Basar. Night comes from the Hebrew word Laila. Some say Lala. It is spelled Lamed Yud Lamed Hey. Laila, and means adversity. This means you suffered misfortune. Night means you suffered affliction. Night, the Hebrew word Laila, means you suffered pain. Night means you suffered distress. Night means you suffered grief and mental pain. Night means you suffered harm and hurt. Night means you suffered ruin, destruction, and decay. Night means you were in a fallen and wrecked condition. Night means you had suffered a terrible downfall. Night means you suffered the complete loss of health. Night, Laila, means you suffered a complete loss of position and hope. You were devastated. Night means you were brought to financial ruin. Night means you were bankrupt, absolutely bankrupt. Night means you were injured irretrievably in Egypt. These were your conditions. Sound familiar? Does it sound like your condition today? Night means you became barren and stopped having children. Night means you became destitute without means of subsistence. Night means you became deprived of all your possessions. Night means you were in a constant state of lack. Night means you were abandoned. No one to come to your rescue. Night means you were needy, poor, indigent, penniless, and necessitous. Night means you were impoverished and deficient. Night means the areas of your community became uninhabited and isolated. Night means that you became lonely. No one wanted to be in your company. Night means you were destitute of sympathetic and friendly companionship and relationships. Night means you were isolated from society. You felt abandoned by friends. Night means you felt dreary, a feeling of sadness and gloom. Night means that you felt dull. Your life was boring and sorrowful. Night means you were dull, drab, tedious, and unpleasant people to be around. Night means you were dismal. Night means you were depopulated Your population was reduced in numbers. Night means you were made disconsolate. Disconsolate. Night means you were forsaken. Night means you suffered great misery. You suffered wretchedness of conditions and circumstances. Night means you suffered distress caused by need. You suffered distress caused by privation and poverty. Night means you suffered great distress of mind. Night means you suffered extreme unhappiness. Night means you suffered great despondency. Night means you were very unfortunate in condition and circumstances. You were very pitiable. Night also means you were despicable, contemptible, and a mean people. Night means you were absolutely worthless. Night means you suffered great agony, extreme and generally prolonged pain. Night means you displayed intense mental and emotional excitement. Night means you were in a severe, violent struggle to survive. Night, Lila in Hebrew, means you suffered extreme torture. Your enemy inflicted excruciating pain upon you as a means of punishment and coercion. Night means you suffered extreme anguish of body and mind. Night means your mind was twisted, forced, and brought into the unnatural mindset of the tree of good and evil. Night, Lila in Hebrew, means you suffered great torment. Your enemies worried you, annoyed you excessively. Night means your enemies continually threw you into negative commotions. Night means you were disturbed day and night. You suffered great distress, acute physical and mental suffering. Night means you suffered acute anxiety and sorrow. Your enemies caused you great trouble. Night means you were in a state of extreme necessity and misfortune. Night means you were in need of immediate assistance. Only Yuhewahe delivered you. No one came to your rescue to deliver you in Egypt but Yuhewahe. Your enemies subjected you unto great pressure, stress, and strain. You were embarrassed and exhausted by strain. Night means you were compelled by force of circumstances to do wicked acts. You were distressed by excessive work. Your enemies made you suffer to sustain injury and loss. Night means you had to undergo penalties, especially of death. The death penalty. Does your condition in Egypt sound familiar to you today? Night means to be the object of negative action. Night means you had to learn how to endure and hold out patiently. Night means you were forced to be subjected to all things unpleasant. Night means that you suffered negative experiences and conditions. Night means you had to tolerate oppression gladly. Now, as you can now begin to see, being required to eat the flesh at night is a great secret metaphor which describes our grievous condition, past and present. Almighty Yuhewahe was the only one to come and deliver you from Egypt, and the only one to deliver you today. You made an exclamation of lamentation daily. Night means you made pitiful outcries about suppression. Night means you made loud complaints and protests about oppression and discrimination. Night means you howled from grief, keen mental suffering and distress over affliction and loss. Night means you suffered sharp sorrow. Night means you suffered painful regret. You suffered disappointment and misfortune. And you failed at every turn. Night means you suffered from dolor, D-O-L-O-R, severe anguish and acute torment. Night means you suffered great sorrow, distress caused by loss. Night was a time of many troubles. You suffered great sadness. You were extremely melancholy. Night means you had a constant feeling of unhappiness. Night means you made continuing expressions of sorrow. Night means your conditions were deplorably bad. And you were full of anger. Night means you suffered from severe anxiety, uneasiness caused by danger. Night means you were full of solicitous desires. Means you were anxious and concerned about freedom. You were anxious and concerned about justice. You were anxious and concerned about equality. You were anxious and concerned about discrimination. You were anxious and concerned. You were anxiously desirous and solicitous of the esteem of others. You were eager to be accepted in the clubs, circles, and societies of others. Night means you were always agitated. Night means you suffered from extreme unhappiness. You were always miserable. You were contemptible. You were considered mean and vile and worthless. Night means you were held in disdain. Night means you were scorned. Night means you were despised. Night means you were dishonored. Night means you were disgraced in the sight of all the people of the earth. Night means you were willfully disobedient to the rules and order of society. Night means you showed open disrespect for the person and property of others. Night means you suffered strong feelings of disapproval combined with disgust and derision. Night means you were openly ridiculed. You were the object of mockery. You were publicly divided. Night means you were disapproved of because you were base. You were the bottom of everything. You were base, the lowermost part of society. You were looked down upon. You suffered. Night means that you were morally low. Night means you were without dignity. You were disapproved of because you were considered and looked down on as mean-spirited. You were disapproved of and looked down upon because you were considered selfish and cowardly. You were looked down upon because you were considered to be of little or no value and worthless. You were looked down upon because you were considered to be counterfeit. You were looked down upon because you were considered to be of illegitimate birth. You were held by tenure less than freehold in return for your services of labor, which were viewed by the rulers as demeaning to you as slaves. You were low in place, position, and degree. You were looked down upon because you suffered extreme unhappiness. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down upon as vile. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down upon as sordid. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down upon as bad. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down upon as being vile. and loving wrong. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down upon as depraved. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as a debased people. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as wicked, evil, iniquitous. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as sinful, breaking the law, statutes, judgments, and commandments of Yudhe-Wave. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as debunked and degenerate. You were looked down upon and suffered extreme unhappiness because you were considered to be immoral, dissolute, demoralized, and dissipated. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as abandoned. No one to come to your rescue. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as profligate. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as being reprobate. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as incorrigible. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as corrupt and black-hearted. You were extremely unhappy, because you were looked down on as ignoble, sinister, miscreant, and evil-minded. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as nefarious. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as flagitious and villainous. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as heinous. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as scandalous. You were looked down on as flagrant and felonious. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as disloyal, unfaithful, treacherous, and perfidious. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as unprincipled. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as disgraceful, shameful, and contemptuous. You were suffering extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as discreditable, disreputable, and dishonorable. You were suffering extreme unhappiness in Egypt because you were looked down on as reprehensible, blameworthy, and culpable. You suffered extreme unhappiness in Egypt because you were looked down on as being scoundrelly and connivish, thievish, and roguish. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as vicious and invidious, a malicious people, malfeasant. You suffered extreme unhappiness in Egypt because you were looked down on as being a contemptible people, a mean-spirited people, a low-down people, currish. You suffered extreme unhappiness in Egypt because you were looked down on as being despicable, loathsome, abhorrent. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as being odious, someone with a smell. Does all of this sound familiar to you today? Your condition today. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as hateful. Are you a bunch of hateful people? The answer has to be yes. You were looked down on as detestable. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as insufferable, opprobrious. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as obnoxious. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as being dreadful, a terrible people, grim, black-hearted, and accursed. You were looked down on as cursed, damnable, and damned. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as demonic, diabolic, devilish, satanic, fiendish, and hellish. You were looked down upon as execrable. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down upon as abominable, a horrible people, horrid, and gruesome. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as monstrous and atrocious. You were looked down on as offensive, unpleasant, objectionable, and disagreeable as a people. All of this is from night. All of this is represented by night. You were looked down on as repulsive, repellent, revolting, and repugnant. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as cowardly, niddering, and pusillanimous, and dastardly. You were looked down on as craven and recreant. You were looked down on as unfaithful and disloyal, apostate, and renegades. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as chicken-hearted and faint-hearted, unnervous people, tremulous, timid in the face of others, apprehensive people, fearful, full of fear. You were looked down upon because you were considered funky. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as menial, a lowly people, a servile people, a slavish and subservient people. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as groveling, sniveling, cowering, cringing. You suffered extreme unhappiness because you were looked down on as obsequious, sycophantic, parasitical. You were looked down on as paltry, trivial, trifling, petty. You were looked down on as slight and feeble. You suffered extremely because you were looked down on as insignificant. You were looked down on as inconsiderable, inappreciable, nugatory, and worthless. You suffered extremely because you were looked down on as a measly people, piddling, niggling, scrimpy, skimpy, and niggardly. You suffered extremely because you were looked down on as miserly, cheap, and catch-penny. You were looked down on as fake, fraudulent, pseudo, and pinchbeck. You suffered extremely because you were looked down on as bogus, bad, phony, a sham. You were looked down upon because you were spurious. You suffered extremely because you were looked down on as superstitious.
This concludes part 4.